Zephyr slowly regained consciousness as voices pulled him back from the void. There was urgency around him, people trying to determine whether he was still alive. His eyes opened as water was poured over his head, and he gasped as air finally filled his lungs. Awareness returned all at once. He realized he was sitting inside a mine, his back pressed against stone, 3 men standing over him and watching closely. Nearby, a young boy lay on the ground, bruised and motionless, clearly beaten. The protagonist examined the men above him, a faint sense of familiarity surfacing. His attention was drawn to a tattoo branded on one man's chest, the stigma. Understanding struck instantly. He covered his face and laughed bitterly, recognizing the god's cruel joke. Zephyr had been sent far back into the past. The reaction drew attention. The surrounding slaves took the laughter as disrespect as he lifted his head and noticed their expressions. In that moment, the truth settled completely. He had returned to the time when he was a slave of the temple. A mine supervisor appeared, irritated by the disturbance, and ordered everyone back to work. The slaves dispersed immediately. One of the men who had been standing over him shot him a hostile look, clearly offended by the earlier reaction, before complying. The protagonist met the glare with indifference, not understanding the aggression. The man bristled, but his companion restrained him and urged compliance. He turned away, already realizing the men posed no real threat anymore. Moving deeper into the mine, he passed the boy who had been beaten earlier. The child struggled upright and expressed gratitude, convinced the protagonist had protected him. He did not understand what the boy meant. Axe in hand, he walked past, noting that too much time had passed and many details were missing. Whatever awaited him now would not be easy. As he walked, he recalled the angel's words about special privileges. The thought lingered. He decided to test it. After confirming no one was nearby, he activated the privilege. Energy surged violently through his body, engulfing him completely. The sudden influx stunned him, leaving him momentarily disoriented. A nervous smirk crossed his face as he adjusted. Then excitement took over. He immediately sensed the advantage he now possessed. 2 nearby miners noticed the change, watching in disbelief as he began working at an unnatural pace. The slave swung his axe relentlessly, carving through stone with ease. Ore bags filled rapidly, far beyond normal output. As he continued, Zephyr acknowledged the absurdity of the skill, accepting its reality as he worked without pause. Moments earlier, when the privilege activated, a massive surge of energy had erupted through him. His mind had been flooded with information all at once, nearly overwhelming him. His awareness expanded rapidly as unfamiliar knowledge forced its way in. He became aware that he had acquired a new ability. Though the information appeared only briefly and unclearly, he understood that what he received was exceptional, skills and items of the highest class. A smirk of excitement crossed his face as he realized the gods had truly armed him this time. That moment of focus was broken when the mine supervisor noticed him standing still. Irritated, the supervisor rushed toward him, convinced the slave was disobeying orders and slacking off on his first day. The protagonist was caught off guard while still processing the new information. The supervisor prepared to strike, anger fueled by years of unchecked authority. The whip cut through the air. He reacted instantly, catching the whip mid-swing with both hands. The supervisor froze, shocked and unsettled. Before the situation could escalate, Zephyr returned the whip calmly, lowered his head in submission, and immediately moved back to work. The supervisor remained stunned as he walked past. Resuming his labor, he briefly examined his hands and noted that the attack had felt unnaturally slow. There was no damage at all. He became aware of the defensive ability he had gained, one that drastically increased endurance and nullified weaker attacks. He continued swinging the axe, realizing he was not growing tired in the slightest. The usefulness of the ability became immediately clear. As he worked, the regressor took stock of his situation. 9 privileges, along with knowledge of the future. With these advantages, regaining former strength would only be a matter of time. His thoughts shifted toward what needed to be done first. By the end of the workday, another supervisor responsible for counting ore was visibly astonished by the output. Other slaves whispered as the filled bags were delivered in overwhelming numbers. Later, the mining teams gathered for the daily rankings. His group placed first. The boy from earlier stood beside him, visibly shocked, while the protagonist realized they were on the same team. The group that had bullied the boy earlier ranked second, their expressions filled with disbelief and resentment. Celebration and despair spread as the remaining rankings were announced. According to protocol, the resources of the last-place team were redistributed among the top performers. He observed the devastated group from a distance. The gathering concluded with a collective prayer. The slaves raised their hands and chanted fervently, pleading for salvation from the goddess of light. He stood among them, unmoved and cold. His gaze settled on the towering statue of Arya. Zephyr reflected on the temple's power, both as the dominant religion of the continent and as its most ruthless financial institution. As the slaves returned from work, exhausted and silent, he reflected on their shared fate. Many had lost everything to monsters. Others had once been adventurers, saved by the temple only to be enslaved by overwhelming debt. His attention drifted to the stigma marked on his body. Without permission, he could not leave the work territory. Any attempt would end his life instantly. He resolved to repay the medical debt as quickly as possible and reclaim his freedom. Only then could he move forward with his plan. Picking up his pace, Zephyr swore not to allow the demon lord Tartarus to act unchecked this time. A memory surfaced. He recalled gripping a woman's hand as dark energy consumed her. Her grasp weakened. Her final expression was gentle, her eyes filled with tears. He stared at the hand that had failed to hold on and remembered her name, Altair. Bowing his head, pain tightening his chest, he vowed that this time he would protect her. The following day, the market filled with people as a priestess oversaw transactions and consultations. He scanned the price listings and immediately recognized how unreasonably inflated they were. Observing from a distance, he was interrupted from behind. It was the boy from the mine who had noticed the interest and offered assistance. The protagonist was surprised and questioned whether the boy could afford it. The child revealed the small amount of money he had earned and insisted it was enough. The boy expressed sincere gratitude, explaining that the protagonist had protected him and secured first place for their group. He admitted his group was usually the weakest and always ranked last, and that this was the first time he had ever received compensation. Understanding the pattern immediately, Zephyr realized one group was always targeted to ensure rankings stayed favorable. Unwilling to take money from a child, he dismissed the boy and moved on, irritated by the attention. Approaching a vendor, he asked about the water of recovery. The question drew scrutiny. The vendor examined him carefully, doubting both experience and finances, before explaining the steep cost and suggesting endurance instead. Without hesitation, he placed gold on the counter and requested a loan for the remaining amount. The boy panicked at the decision, fully aware of the danger such debt carried. The protagonist completed the paperwork, and the agreement was sealed. He sat and drank the recovery water as empty bottles accumulated beside him. The boy anxiously warned him about the crushing interest, but he grew annoyed and shut it down. Calmly, he reasoned that repayment was inevitable. As he continued drinking, he became aware of the potion's hidden effect. While each bottle restored only a small amount of health, repeated consumption increased magical energy. Under normal conditions, it would be inefficient, but not now. A new ability revealed itself, one that drastically amplified potion effects. With this, the recovery water became far more valuable. The following days passed in repetition. He continued working in the mine alongside the boy, knowing the wages alone would never be enough. He maintained steady consumption of recovery water and trained relentlessly, preparing for what came next. Eventually, Zephyr entered the mining head's office and reported unusual sounds from deep within the tunnels. He requested support from the hunting team and offered himself as their guide. With sharp resolve, he committed to the next step. He would fund his future through dungeon raids.